Warning. This show may contain mention of the invisible gorilla. This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals: Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Soraya.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And I have with me Mr. Christopher Ernst.
Hello, everybody.
And Saxon Superman. No, wait, something like that.
That's IP infringement. Be careful there.
That's right.
Yes, I was incorrect on that. It was Saxon Super Infra Guy.
I will say I am a punk rocker, so I'm down with that.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
And we are doing part 2 of The Invisible Gorilla. And since we last talked, I got to listen to some interviews with, I think it's Christopher Chabris, who is the, I guess he's the main author of the book. Daniel Simons, I was not able to find any interviews with. There may be some out there, but they didn't come up when I searched for it.
Interesting.
But the interviews, I mean, there was like a TED Talk and stuff that were interesting. Like the TED Talk, they were showing, like they put up a still image and they're like, okay, this image is changing. Can you see the change? And all the change was a little bit of discoloration in the grass. And so as you're watching and I'm looking at the whole image going, I don't see anything changing. And so then he's like, okay, look right here. Let me play it again. And then you can tell it, you easily see it. And he's like, this is how our brains deceive us. He's like, because that's not important. So your brain's not seeing it.
Huh.
But if you know to look for it, it's plain and obvious, like really obvious. I did listen to an interview where he was talking about how the invisible gorilla was actually a better version of an experiment someone came up with in the 70s.
Huh.
And he said that, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a woman in like Mary Poppins like outfit with an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd walk between the basketball players, but for whatever reason, the person who did it in the 70s filmed all three things separately and then superimposed them, and he said everything looks ghostly. So it makes it so it's like, okay, are people not noticing because it just looks so bad? I mean, it's 1970s technology, really.
Yeah.
So they that's where they started from, is wanting to recreate that and see if they got the same results. Because, of course, in that one as well, people did not see the woman. But, yeah, so that was an interesting starting place. I think Dan Simons was the one who initially wanted to do that. But, yeah, so there was a few interviews out there. There's not a lot. I am going to write them and see if either will come on and talk to us.
Yeah.
I also watched, someone sent me this and I don't remember who it was, but it was a 2020 segment called Endless Memory, and it was up on YouTube, and I'd never heard of this. I thought this was going to be photographic memory, and I have now learned a great deal about this, and they are very different things. So Endless Memory is, what is it called? Superior autobiographical memory.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's people who can remember almost every day of their life.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
I feel like we mentioned this.
Did we?
Either that or we were talking about it. But no, it's super. Yeah.
Yeah. We may have talked about it, but I don't think we knew that as the name for it if we did.
Yeah.
But I know before
we might have been talking about eidetic memory.
Yes, I think that may have been
if I'm saying that correctly.
You are.
Yeah.
Hyperthymesia is what it's actually the technical term for it. And only a handful of people, I think they said like 100 people have been verified to have this so far. One of them being Mary Lou Henner.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
If you don't know who that is, kids, that's she was an actress that was popular in the 80s. She was on
70s,
Taxi, 70s and 80s. Yeah. Taxi. And then there was an 80s, 90s that she was in.
Yeah.
The sitcom Evening Shade with Burt Reynolds. There you go.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I forgot about that show.
Yeah. This is not a movie or TV podcast.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is.
So the 2020 segment, interestingly, was focusing on new research at the time. Was like 2011, I think this was done. And the woman who was hosting 2020 was friends with Mary Lou Henner and was like, I think she has this. And they brought her in and tested her. And sure enough. But what they found some regions of their brains were a bit larger that definitely speak to memory. And they could easily, you could say, what were you doing on a specific day, where they knew what the person was doing and they could recall it. They could be like, oh yeah, that was a Tuesday. So I would have gotten up, done this, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, that was the day this happened, and it's like, okay, it's pretty impressive. But they also said they are also just as liable to have memory distortions as anyone else.
Okay, that's interesting.
And their working theory, at least back then, and from what I've seen of it since then, is that almost everyone who has this is very OCD.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
They think that they are basically, when they experience something, they're running it over again and again in their head.
Yeah.
Whether consciously or unconsciously, and strengthening that memory, and it's all very organized to them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well,
So-
there's that whole trope that I feel like is a fiction trope, but maybe it's real for some people of, putting together that memory palace where, you have this visualization of your different memories that exists in this, very visual space that you kind of construct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as I understand, that is a real thing that was sort of, in the West kind of developed in the leading into the Renaissance and things like that, because you had such rare access to books and education that when you got it, you had to find ways to, remember things clearly. And there's a lot of documentation. I say documentation. That's the wrong way to phrase it. A lot of things available online and in books that will teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
I've never had the patience for it. I've tried it, but honestly, like I can just look stuff up on my phone, so I'm lazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about why oral tradition is sometimes so important, and why I feel like I've read some studies that have said that there are, in some instances where people remember things better, rather than writing it down and having that be, the way in which something's being documented. If you think about, traditions that have been passed down orally, it's certainly something anthropologically, I think that's been studied.
Well, also,
for sure.
They make it a story too, and stories stick with us better than data.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Makes you think about, not only religion, obviously, but like mythology and, our current myths, speaking of superheroes.
So, I mean, that's why you see so much stuff encoded into those myths, astrological stuff and certain sacred numbers and things like that. I mean, it's because they wanted that to continue on. And sure, they could just have them memorize the info. But if it was in a story, it was more likely to be remembered. And yeah, there have been studies of how people in cultures that have oral traditions will remember those oral traditions better than cultures that write everything down.
Right.
I certainly remember a lot. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I remember so much of the Meher Baba stuff is that they, were there. A lot of them were told as personal stories from people that were with him. And my mom and dad used to read them to me when I was a kid. And they are, they're interesting little stories. They're like accounts of people, doing stuff, and there are strange things that happen. I mean, it's very similar to some of those. I remember thinking they were similar as a kid to like Roald Dahl stories I would hear about, travels in India, because most of these were written, in the 30s by English people. So it has that kind of flavor, but I definitely remember them. And also the myths of the world, which was another big thing that was read to me, like, Norse myths and Greek myths. And, I remember them like they just will not know, no matter how many things I put in my system or how many head injuries I get, they won't go away.
And there's also the study that was done that showed that writing something down with a pen and paper cements it in your brain better than typing it.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes perfect sense because you actually have to focus on what you're doing, and it takes just a little longer.
Yeah. I think they showed different brain activity associated, if I remember right.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense too. I type insanely fast, and so I'll type faster than I am able to comprehend what I'm hearing, process it. And so, I'll have a whole page full of stuff, and in my head, I've only really thought about 2 sentences.
Right. Right.
So I can totally see how that's a thing. One thing, tangent, but talking about eidetic memory.
Eidetic?
Yeah. That tends to be a trope in a lot of fantasy and science fiction, too. There's always the vampire that, could care less about some of the major events in the world, but they know what they had for lunch, 200 years ago on Tuesday afternoon.
Well, that's
also crime. I feel like there's been so many CBS crime shows about, people who have that memory, the detectives,
So that's right. Yeah.
There is a difference between autographical, what did I just say it was? Superior autographical memory and eidetic memory. And this is what I did not know.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was curious about.
Eidetic memory, which is photographic memory, is a rare ability to recall visual images, sounds, or objects in great detail for a short period of time, after a brief exposure, often in what seems almost like a photographic sort of sense.
Okay, so it's you can go in. So this is another that's a crime scene trope where you go into a room, you're in there for 5 seconds, you come out and you can list every single thing that's in there, like you were in there. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So, I mean, the one that always comes to mind to me was the TV show 7 Days, where they could send the guy 7 days back in time to fix something that happened, and they picked him because he had eidetic memory and could remember everything they told him. But that's not how that works, apparently. Like with most things, one of the interviews with Christopher Chabris, they were talking about how, you only use 10% of your brain. And he's like, that's one of those things that it doesn't work like that,
Yep.
Your whole brain is always used, or someone being left or right brained. It's no, you always use all of, both sides of your brain. It's just some people lean toward, the artistic stuff is one side, the logical stuff is the other side, but we all use both sides. So eidetic memory was not what I thought it was. It says eidetic versus photographic memory. The term photographic memory is often used interchangeably, but true photographic memory, permanent, flawless recall of images or text after seeing them once, has never been scientifically proven to exist.
Huh.
So it says usually the person will start forgetting the thing in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So it can incorporate other senses. So it's not necessarily because I'm thinking eidetic memory. I was also mixing up eidetic memory with this hyper. What did I say it was called? Hyperthymesia. The superior autographical memory, and that is not photographic memory. That is not eidetic memory. It's just the ability, when they were asking them to describe you can look the 60-minute segment up. It's called Endless Memory on YouTube. When they asked them to describe how it works, and they're kind of because they're do you just remember all this stuff all the time? And they're like, no, it's kind of like flipping through a catalog. I just look for that date, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I did this on that date. It's very organized. And they were walking through Mary Lou Henner's closet, and she had everything immaculately organized. And they're and
yeah, right.
and it's yep, this is sort of an OCD sort of thing. And they said, I think they said everyone that they had tested up to that point was OCD. So they believe that probably what's happening is they're recreating those memories in their head as things happen, especially major things.
Right.
But again, subject to the same variance of accuracy as anyone else.
Okay.
But there was like one guy who was like a Dodgers fan. Because that's the thing. They asked them, things they asked them about big events. They asked them about, like, one guy was like a Dodgers fan or something like that. And they're like, okay, what was the last time they won prior to this year or whatever year, like 1970? And he'd be like, oh, it was on this date and this, et cetera, et cetera. And then, like, she said something like, okay, what was the score for this game on this date? And he could tell them. And then, like, what about this date? And he goes, no, they didn't play that date. And she's like, yeah, that was a trick question.
Right. Wow.
So it's an interesting thing, but I don't think it's all that mysterious either. I mean, if you are, I think it's just a different way brains work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What I would be curious about is how much of that comes from being super OCD when you're young and you created just such a deep level of habit of remembering things versus a different.
Because you have a malleable brain or something.
Right. Because I can tell you as I've gotten older, like, I used to remember everything, but part of the reason I don't now is because I just don't want to spend that much time trying to remember things perfectly.
Sure. Sure.
I've got other things going on and stuff like that. And so, I don't think that my memory has gotten that much poorer. I just, don't need to remember as much the same way as I would have when I was younger, memorizing everything for school or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the byproduct of that is that I just, generally remember stuff and I'll go look it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But everybody's phone number from when I was a kid and their addresses and all that stuff. And I still have all that in my head.
I don't. Yeah. But it was more important to us then. That's the thing. We remember we tend to focus on remembering the important things. Right. So
right.
That's why I say, when people say, oh, as you get older, time moves faster, it doesn't. We just have less novel stuff that's important to remember. Thus, when we look back, it seems like, oh, those two things happened really close because we've forgotten all the generic stuff in between. Mm. If you write down what you did every day, even just briefly, and then go back and look at it, you'll be like, oh, wow, a whole lot of stuff happened that I don't even remember. I mean, like, you might remember as you're looking at it. But
right.
If I were to say, hey, what happened between these two events, you might be like, really, nothing,
Yeah.
So, memory's weird. It's not a playback machine. So I'm not entirely sure where we left off. I bookmarked the page that says unskilled and unaware of it in here. And I don't think we talked about this. This is Charles Darwin observed. By the way, this is The Invisible Gorilla, How Our Intuitions Deceive Us, from Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons. The first part we did, I think it was the last show that we put up before this one, should be the first part of this.
Yeah, okay.
Charles Darwin observed that ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. In fact, those who are the least skilled are the most likely to think better of themselves than they should. They disproportionately experience the illusion of confidence. Some of the most striking examples of this principle come from Criminals, an idea captured in Woody Allen's first feature film, Take the Money and Run. Allen stars as Virgil Starkwell, a boy raised in difficult circumstances, who turns to a life of crime as a teenager, but Virgil never manages to achieve success in his profession. As a child, he tries to steal gumballs, but gets his hand stuck and has to run down the street, carrying the entire machine. As an adult, he tries to rob a bank, but the tellers can't read his hold-up note, and the police arrive before he can explain it to them. He tries to break out of jail by carving a gun out of soap and coating it with black shoe polish. I don't know if I've ever seen this movie. But as he leaves, it pours rain, and the guards notice suds frothing from his weapon. Stupid Criminals are a staple of film and television comedy, in part because they violate the stereotype of the criminal mastermind, the genius-turned-psychopath James Bond villain. But this stereotype is not representative of actual criminals, at least not those who get caught. Smut Brown. Really? Smut is your name? Wow.
That's
my name's Smut Brown. I'll refrain from making a Woody Allen, what was the real crime that he did joke, but
Oh, God.
Smut Brown, the murder suspect with Kenneth Conley chased down in Boston. Okay, so this refers to saying earlier in the book where they were chasing this suspect. He was black. An off-duty officer joined in on the chase who was also black. One of the other cops just knew they were chasing a black guy, attacked the other officer.
Oh, my God.
Right. Well, that's...
While seeing, but right next to them, like he was just about to catch the kid who jumped over this fence, and then the officer took down the other officer thinking he was the one they were after. And he said, I never saw the kid. And this was one of those things, those illusions of, people are saying, well, how could he have not seen the kid? He was chasing him and all this other stuff. And they go into great detail on this in the book, that this officer may really not have seen the kid because he was focused on this guy, thinking, there's the guy I'm trying to run down.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was accusations of, he did this intentionally, and so on and so forth. And he was like, no, I didn't do this intentionally. I thought this was the guy we were after.
Yeah. Sure.
So, let's see. And then they talk about the Kruger-Dunning effect.
I was going to say, is that the one?
Oh, yeah, Dunning-Kruger. I think we did. We might have very briefly touched upon this. It might have been on the, because I couldn't remember Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, and it says, where does it start with this? According to Kruger and Dunning, when police later showed him the surveillance tape, Mr. Wheeler stared in incredulity. But I wore the juice, he mumbled.
I wore the juice.
Apparently, Mr. Wheeler was under the impression that rubbing one's face with lemon juice. Oh, okay, so this was the kid who committed the crime. A substance used by generations of children to write hidden messages rendered it invisible to videotape cameras.
Oh, okay.
Aha.
Wow, okay. So, yeah, he covered himself with juice to make himself invisible.
Juice. Boy, oh boy.
Kruger and Dunning wondered whether Wheeler's combination of incompetence and obliviousness was unusual, perhaps a profile peculiar to failed criminals, or whether it may be a more general phenomenon. In their first experiment, they zeroed in not on criminal ability, which is, we hope, uncommon, but on a quality that most people believe they possess, a sense of humor. They asked whether people who are bad at understanding which jokes are funny and which are not mistakenly believe they have a perfectly good sense of humor. But how to measure a sense of humor? Unlike chess, there is no rating system for a sense of humor, but one clear lesson of the past century of psychology research is that almost any quality can be measured well enough to be studied scientifically. We don't mean to say that it's easy to capture the ineffable qualities that make something funny. If it were, then someone with no sense of humor could write a computer program to generate good jokes. What we mean is that people are remarkably consistent in judging what's funny and what's groan-worthy. The same is true for many other seemingly unmeasurable qualities. You might think that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but it isn't. When asked to judge the attractiveness of a set of faces, people give remarkably consistent ratings, despite individual differences in tastes and preferences. This is the reason why most people will never be models. Which is interesting, because I think that's partially cultural.
I definitely think so. Yeah.
And even with jokes, I would think that would also be cultural.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you hear about, comedians having to, study the culture in order to, get their jokes over if they, go to a different country, even, Australia or England.
Right. So they go on rating jokes here. Decide which of these two jokes is funnier. Question: what is a big man but weighs nothing? Answer: his shadow. Or big as a man. Well, see, I screwed that up. Or number 2, if a kid asks where rain comes from, I think it's cute to tell him God is crying. And if he asks why God is crying, another cute thing to tell him is probably because of something you did.
Isn't that a Jack Candy, Deep Thoughts?
Maybe.
Yes.
I love it. It is. Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So Kruger and Dunning then asked undergraduate students at Cornell to rate the same jokes. The idea that people with a good sense of humor would rate the jokes similarly to the professional funny people, because they said the professional funny people rated the first one a 1.3 and the second one a 9.6. So they found that, but people with a bad sense of humor could rate them differently. The top scorers agreed with the comedian 78% of the time on whether a joke was funny or not. The bottom scorers, those in the bottom quarter of the subjects in the sense of humor test, actually disagreed with the comedians about whether a joke was funny more often than they agreed with them. They thought only 44% of the funny jokes were funny, but 56% of the unfunny jokes were. So I'm not sure where this gets into because there's a lot here. This is a book you need to read, honestly. Okay, so then they start talking about like chess players. The same pattern held in our study of chess players who thought they should have been more highly rated than they actually were. The players who considered themselves most underrated were disproportionately found in the bottom half of the ability range. On average, these weaker players thought they were underrated by 150 points, whereas the players in the top half of the ability claimed to be only 50 points underrated. Stronger players thus were somewhat overconfident, but weaker players were extremely overconfident. So this is where the Dunning-Kruger effect has come from. In other experiments, Kruger and Dunning showed that this unskilled and unaware effect can be measured in many areas besides humor, including logical reasoning and English grammar skills. It probably applies to any area of human experience, whether in real life or on television comedy, or on the television comedy The Office. We have all encountered obviously incompetent managers. Oh, yeah, well, that's true. Mm-hmm. People who graduate last in medical school classes are still doctors and probably think they're pretty good ones. So
for sure,
yeah,
yeah, totally.
Also, no one's the bad guy too.
Yeah, no one's a bad guy.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing too is like it's really hard to comprehend people that are beyond you in intelligence and talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And until you like directly interact with that, it's almost, how can you conceive of something that's more than you are? If you want to frame it like that. But, my experience on that with the martial arts side of things, when I've worked with like people who are legitimately pro athletes, they're 300% times better than the best people I'm around most of the time who are already great.
Right. Right.
But their ability to fundamentally be good at everything, even though you might say, well, this guy's got a great overhand right, or this person's a great home run hitter in baseball, they're still better than 99% of the population at all of the other aspects of their sport or trade or whatever. And it is, they don't seem real when you meet them.
Right.
And so I could totally see how you'd be like, or myself on a list like that, be like, oh, I should be closer to the top. But then if you showed me what these other people were doing, I would be like, well, hold on.
Right.
Yeah.
It says, we tend to think about our abilities in the most positive light possible. We tend to think that our good performances reflect our superior abilities, while our mistakes are accidental, inadvertent, or a result of circumstances beyond our control. And we do our best to ignore evidence that contradicts these conclusions. If incompetence and overconfidence are linked, would training incompetent people to be more skilled improve their understanding of their own skill levels? Kruger and Dunning found that in a later experiment, teaching the people who did the worst on a logical reasoning test to perform the tasks better significant. Man, words. Part of the problem is the writing in this book is very small and the light in this room is not great.
Yeah.
Kruger and Dunning found just that in their later experiment. Teaching the people who did worst on a logical reasoning task to perform the task better significantly, although not completely, reduced their overconfidence. So teaching them how to perform better reduced their overconfidence.
Yeah. Yep.
Making people more competent is the way, or at least one way, to make them better judges of their competence, which makes total sense when you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The challenge, I think, is if people are willing to accept that there's more for them to learn.
Yes. Yes.
That's totally the big thing. Yeah, is being able to check your ego. Yep.
I mean, I've been around some narcissists that, like, when they get confronted with things beyond them, or just they'll convince themselves that they're better than that. They just had a bad day or whatever,
right?
And they'll leave, and you'll never see them again because it's a threat to their entire worldview.
Yeah.
Well, like, I know at least one vocalist off the top of my head that I've met who's a good vocalist, but they're not an amazing vocalist, but they think they're an amazing vocalist.
Right.
Thus, they don't seem to actually improve because they don't need to improve.
Right, right.
And it's like, if you just, and I don't think that's a narcissistic thing with them. I think it's just that they are underestimating how good they are.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it doesn't have to be a narcissist thing, to your point. Yeah, you can have an inflated opinion of yourself. And, if you're in the right context of that too, you may never be confronted with anything that changes that.
Yeah. And, and if you're insecure in the first place, that's not going to help you.
Right.
So they end this part saying, once you know about the aspect of the illusion of confidence, you can start to pay more attention to what confidence really means for yourself and for others. If you are just learning a new task and you now know that you should hedge your estimate of how well you are doing, you can also recognize that other people are more likely to be overconfident when they are first learning a new task. When your children are learning to drive, they will be more confident of their skill, and they should be. Managers who have just been promoted to new positions are likely to display unwarranted certainty in their own actions. And keep in mind that it is gaining a real skill in a task, not just doing it more and more, that makes confidence a true signal of ability. Experience does not guarantee expertise.
Right.
Hence, the vocalist I was just talking about sings all the time, but is not necessarily looking to improve because they don't feel they need to.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, so it says the crisis of confidence, the combination of incompetence and overconfidence, gives us hilarious stories of stupid criminals and entertaining video clips of deluded American Idol aspirants. But misplaced confidence can have more serious effects as well. Western society places an extraordinary value on individual self-confidence. A life lived without confidence is not a worthy life. David Bard's self-help book, 1,000 Paths to Confidence, begins by declaring, every moment of your life is absolutely precious and is not to be wasted in self-doubt. The wish to be confident and to live a life with confidence is the vital first step. If you are prepared to take it, congratulate yourself. You have begun your journey on the path to confidence. A popular business book by Harvard professor Rosebeth Moss Cantor, not coincidentally titled Confidence, argues that maintaining confidence perpetuates winning streaks, while losing, it can trigger losing streaks, and that confidence shapes the outcomes of many contests of life, from simple ball games to complex enterprises, from individual performance to national culture.
I mean, I would be interested to see what that was actually based upon in terms of her, her study, because it seems to me like there is this inherent bias there, again, towards this idea of competitive, basically competitive capitalism is what it is at the end of the day. But it could even be extended to, the competitiveness that particularly, our American culture really shoves down, men's throats, boys' throats, kids, all kids at this point. But it's something I grew up with because I grew up in the 80s, it was still pretty prevalent there. And it sounds to me, again, like the kind of thing that, the coach is going to say to you. And I got to take that with a grain of salt, just at least in my lived experience.
So, I mean, it's on the one hand, confidence can push you forward.
Yeah.
If you feel like.
Right. It's also something which can be great. Yes. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Like, I can do this. I know I can do this. You're putting that stuff versus self-doubt where you're going, I don't think I can do this. I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think that what they're trying to show, the illusion of confidence, is not only for the self, but when you look to those people who are super confident, you tend to want to trust them because they have the answers. So,
Yeah.
in the UFO field, that's someone like Greer,
Oh, yeah.
who's out there, or even Elizondo and stuff, where they're telling you, we have this, we're absolutely confident, this is what it is, we're telling you, and they're convincing a lot of people of this stuff because they're so confident.
Right.
Yeah, but I also think that kind of, to some degree, proves my point. I mean, it's like, look at all those guys. Like, what's their, I feel like they all follow that kind of, fake it till you make it BS, which, is a kind of like, I think, like rotting our society. But,
Yeah. I wonder too, like the way we respond to confidence and the way it comes about, how much of that was a survival strategy that was almost a biological thing? Because, confidence is disarming and seductive, right? Because just like Soraya's saying, like we think they have the answers. And I just feel like there was a reason we went that way at some point, throughout our history. If we're going to, look at this from one perspective of just biological aspects, right?
Sure.
But it is kind of interesting because it seems like that probably worked for a long time. And of course, now we get to what you're talking about, where people are, teaching programs and all these things to teach you how to be confident. So you can basically go and, maybe you need the help, but it also might be something that helps you run cons on people and things like that. I mean, it's a confidence job, right?
Yeah.
And we sure see a lot of people running confidence jobs these days.
Yep. Well, yes, and we always have. I mean,
that's true.
Really, you're not going to elect an unconfident politician.
Right. If you get up there and say you don't know, we're going to try our best, then you're not going to make it.
Right. Yeah, I'll do what I can. Oh, okay. We're not voting for you.
Yeah.
And you definitely get those cults of personalities. Again, looking at someone like Stephen Greer, who does have that cult of personality behind him, or Lou Elizondo and those guys who have built this sort of, sycophantic like following. Whatever they say is true, even though they're just kind of doing the carrot and stick thing.
Yeah.
They keep leading people along. Oh, the next thing, wait till you see this thing. It's so big, and then it's just kind of passes along and no one seems to remember because now they're confidently touting something else.
Yep.
So they are, I'm trying to remember which, this chapter is entitled, Should You Be More Like a Weather Forecaster or a Hedge Fund Manager?
Can I pick neither?
Right.
Which one of those has more of a soul? Let me go with that one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the weather forecasters have a hard job. I mean, they're dealing with almost infinite variables that we can't possibly follow.
Right.
And they're trying
it's not a judgment on weather forecasters. That's more like one is hard, one sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Most meteorologists I've met are pretty cool people too.
Oh yeah.
So we'll read this section here. The virtue of being like an annoying child. Spend a moment now and try to form an image in your mind of a bicycle. Even better, if you have a piece of paper, draw a sketch of a bicycle. Don't worry about making it a great piece of art. Just focus on getting all the major parts in the right place. Stretch out the frame and handlebars and wheels and pedals, or sketch out all the parts, etc. For simplicity, just make it a single speed bike. Got it? If you had to rate your understanding about how a bicycle works on a 1 to 7 scale, where 1 means no understanding and 7 means complete understanding, where would you score yourself? If you're like most of the people who have participated in this clever study by British psychologist Rebecca Lawson, you thought you had a pretty good understanding of bicycles.
Yeah.
Her subjects rated the level of their knowledge at 4.5 out of 7 on average. Now look at the drawing and refresh your mental image, and then look at the following questions. Does your bicycle have a chain? If so, does the chain run between the 2 wheels? Does the frame of your bicycle connect the front and back wheels? Are the pedals connected to the inside of the chain? If you drew a chain connecting the two wheels of your bicycle, think about how the bicycle would run or turn. The chain would have to stretch wherever the front wheel goes, but chains aren't stretchy. Similarly, if a rigid frame connected both wheels, the bicycle could only go straight. Some people draw pedals outside the loop of the chain, making it impossible to turn the chain by pedaling. Errors like these were common in Lawson's study, and they are not trivial details of the functioning of a bicycle. The pedals turn the chain, which causes the back wheel to rotate, and the front wheel must be free to turn, or the bicycle cannot change direction. People are much better at making sense of a bicycle's working when the whole thing is sitting right in front of them, when they are explaining or drawing a bicycle purely from memory.
Okay.
So this falls under their illusion of knowledge, where we think we understand how something works, but we really, we may understand more how to use it.
Yes. That makes sense. I mean, I still think, that I could I could nail that bike.
Everyone thinks they can nail that bike.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
So, So what do I have here? Page 163. What is on page 163? Here we go. Beware of belief becoming because. Oh, this is interesting. So this is the illusion of cause. So it talks about, and I connected this to the way conspiracies and paranormal theories come together. What I wrote is, to test, you need multiple factors that can be changed. But let me see exactly what they said here. Yep. Okay, so here's where they talk about conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories result from a pattern perception mechanism gone awry. They are cognitive variations of the Virgin Mary grilled cheese. The conspiracy theorists who already believed that President Bush would stage 9/11 to justify a preconceived plan to invade Iraq were quick to see his false memory of seeing the first plane hit the tower as evidence that he knew about the attack in advance. People already thought that Hillary Clinton would say anything to get elected, were quick to jump on her false memory of Bosnian snipers as evidence that she was lying to benefit her campaign. In both cases, people used their understanding of the person to fit the event into a pattern. They inferred an underlying cause, and they were so confident that they had the right cause that they failed to notice the plausible alternatives for explanations. Illustrations of this illusion, of course, are so pervasive that undergraduates in our research methods classes had no problems completing our assignment to find a recent media report on that mistakenly infers a causal relationship from a mere association. One BBC article, provocatively entitled "Sex Keeps You Young," reported a study by David Weeks of the Royal Edinburgh Hospital showing that couples who have sex at least 3 times a week look more than 10 years younger than the average adult who makes love twice a week. The caption to an attached photo read, "Regular sex can take years off your looks. Although having sex could somehow cause a youthful appearance, it is at least plausible that having a youthful appearance leads to more sexual encounters, or that a youthful appearance is a sign of a physical fitness, which makes frequent sex easier, or that the people who appear more youthful are more likely to maintain an ongoing sexual relationship, or, well, the possible explanations are endless. The statistical association between youthful appearance and sexual activity does not imply that one causes the other. Had the title been phrased in the opposite way, "You looking young gets you more sex," it would have been equally conclusatory, but less surprising and therefore less newsworthy.
Yeah. The correlation and causality, I wish statistics were taught more everywhere. Because you could say chewing gum reduces your chance of X by 200%,
Right.
But your chance of X happening to you is 0.005.
Right.
And now chewing gums made that 0.0003, whatever. And so you hear reduced 200%. So it sounds like it's something amazing, but you don't know the data going into it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And the correlation aspect of things like that is even funnier, because you can have something like people that ride horses have less chance of cancer death.
Right.
riding a horse is not taking away their chances of having cancer, but it might mean that they have more income and funds to afford better health care and find things earlier so they have better outcomes.
Yep.
Right? But when it's presented, you don't get that other thing. You just hear, people that ride horses have less cancer deaths.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that thing from The Simpsons where it's like Lisa's trying to explain something similar like that to Homer and says, because I hold this rock, it means that there are no tigers that will ever attack. It just keeps away tigers.
Right.
And he's like, give me the rock. Give me the rock.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things. Like there was a guy. So when I was looking into the 9/11 stuff, there was a National Geographic thing that was dispelling all the conspiracy theories, which it really wasn't. It was just basically not trying to see if this stuff was possible. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy who watched this, and he was an engineer, and he took because they're saying, they're saying, well, there's no way what was it? Thermite explosive could have gone through the beams of the Twin Towers. Mm-hmm. And so he got one of these beams and he made thermate, which is very similar to thermite. And he put it on and he replicated what they did, which just blew away from the beam and didn't do any damage. But within, I think, 6 variations of him playing around with it, he got it to eat right through the steel beam, which looked very much like the steel beams that were left from the Twin Towers. And then he's like, I've proved that this is what they did. I'm like, no, you've proved that it's possible.
Right.
There's a big difference between proof of one thing and just proving the possibility of something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is another, I think, illusion that people have. If they have an idea in their head, and then they find something that supports it, they've now proved it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you think your house is haunted and you find that, and you look in a directory and you find that, 100 years ago, this person died in the house, it must be them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yes. 100%. I think that's a big part of how, of how people attribute to, any anomalous phenomena.
Right. And again, with the idea of the wilderness poltergeist, if you're hearing sounds that sound like an ape and you're getting stones thrown at you that are warm, well, clearly this is an ape.
Yeah, it's obviously Bigfoot.
Even though you didn't see anything and you can't prove that it's Bigfoot, you're absolutely certain, because what else would it be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that we don't know what some of this phenomena is, we don't exactly know how a poltergeist works, if it's just coming from us, if it's something outside of us using that energy, if it's it's certainly not us consciously doing it. Mm-hmm. There's so many factors here that we don't understand. But we just make that assumption that if the pieces fit, well, that must be it. It fits our belief.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've always added or talked about how I think, public campsites are places where rituals are stacked on top of each other all the time. Because you go out there and you set up your camp and go through your process of community and making food and all these things and being out in the woods. And then the next day somebody comes to that same place and does the same thing again. And the next day somebody comes and does that again. And, and you tell ghost stories and sit around the fire at night. And I'm like, that's a lot of very specific kind of liminal space activity going on there. It seems like if there was energy around, it would certainly work with it, you know?
Yeah. And I think our expectations also, I think as this book is showing, we're not seeing as much as we think we're seeing. So I also think that, we're projecting out what we expect to see, especially if you're out there looking for something. If you're in a home looking for a ghost, your brain is projecting that image on things.
Yeah.
If you're out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, you might see something furry move in the distance. You're like, oh my God, I saw Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you have poltergeist stuff kick in on top of that, well, that just proved it to you.
Right.
They give a few examples here of things that because they say if you're going to make a claim, you have to have a way to test that claim.
Right.
Because otherwise it's just a random thing. And so they took actual headlines, and one of them was "Drop That BlackBerry." I forgot BlackBerries were a thing. When I read that, I thought of like a BlackBerry muffin or a blueberry muffin. And it's like, oh no, the phone. That's right.
The phone. I literally thought you were talking about the fruit too.
It says, "Drop that BlackBerry. Multitasking may be harmful." And then they say, could researchers randomly assign some people to lead a multitasking BlackBerry-addicted life and others to just focus at one thing on one thing at a time all day long? Probably not. The study actually used a questionnaire to find people who already tended to watch TV, text message, and use their computers simultaneously and compared them with people who tended to do just one of those things at a time. Then they gave them a set of cognitive tests to both groups and found that multitaskers did worse on some of the tests. The original article describes the study's method clearly, but the headline added an unwarranted causal interpretation. It's also possible that people who do badly at the cognitive tests also think they can multitask just fine and therefore tend to do it more than they should. The next one says, bullying harms kids' mental health. Could a researcher randomly assign some kids to be bullied and others not to be bullied? No, not ethically anyway. So the study must have measured the association between being bullied and suffering mental health problems. The causal relationship could well be reversed. Children who have mental health issues might be more likely to be bullied, or some other factor, perhaps in their family background, could cause them to both be bullied and have mental health issues.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to me. And the bullying,
Yeah.
And then I don't know if so this is a hot take maybe, because I never liked being bullied, and I don't think anybody should ever have to deal with it.
Nope.
But as I got older, because I had such good people around me all the time, I didn't know how to deal with people that were unreasonable or jerks.
Right.
And kind of had to learn that on my own in my 20s.
Yeah.
Because I would just let people walk all over me in different ways because I didn't understand why they were doing that. And I thought that you could logic around that,
Yep.
And it took me a little bit to figure out, like, oh, these people are just awful,
Yeah, for sure. No, I think there's a point to that. I mean, and it's one of those things that it doesn't mean it's necessarily, I don't know, bad or good. It's just, it's the dynamic that's been set up. I mean, you do get, you do learn things that can become more beneficial for you in the long run by, going through a negative experience.
Yeah. And I'm sure, you could also just teach those qualities too without having to go through the negative experience. But it's crossed my mind a few times because I'm like, man, everybody I was around was so reasonable that when I did encounter unreasonable people, it confused me more than anything.
Right.
And I was like, man, I really wish somebody had like talked to me about that sooner or something instead of, trying to figure that out as I was older.
So this part went up a few pages here. It says, the tendency to neglect alternative paths to the same outcome in favor of a single narrative pervades many of the best-selling business books. Almost every report claiming to identify the key factors that lead companies to success, from in search of excellence to good to great, errs by considering only companies that succeeded and then analyzing what they did. They don't look at whether other companies did those same things and failed. Malcolm Gladwell's bestseller, The Tipping Point, describes the remarkable reversal of fortune for the maker of unfashionable hush puppies after their shoes suddenly became trendy. Gladwell argues that hush puppies succeeded because they were adopted by a trendy subculture which made them appealing and generated buzz. And he's right that hush puppies generated buzz, but the conclusion that the buzz was caused by their success, or their buzz caused their success, follows only from a retrospective narrative bias and not from an experiment. In fact, it's not even clear that there's an association between buzz and success in the data. To establish even a non-causal association, we would need to know how many other similar companies took off without first generating a buzz, and how many other companies generated similar buzz but remained grounded. Only then could we start worrying about whether the buzz caused the success, or whether the causation really ran in the other direction, success leading to buzz, or even in both directions simultaneously, a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, take that, Malcolm Gladwell. Pop science.
Let's see. Okay, so this one I found really interesting. He goes, there's one final pitfall inherent in turning chronology into causality. Because we perceive sequences as events as part of a timeline, with one leading to the next, it is hard to see that there are almost always many interrelated reasons or causes for a single outcome. The sequential nature of time leads people to act as though a complex decision or event must have a single cause. We make fun of the enthusiasts of conspiracy theories for thinking this way, but they are just operating under a more extreme form of the illusion of cause that affects all of us. Here are some statements made by Chris Matthews, host of the MSNBC news program Hardball, about the origins of the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq. What is the motive for this war? I wanted to know whether 9/11 is the reason, because a lot of people think it's payback. Do you believe the weapons of mass destruction were the reason for this war? The reason we went to war with Iraq was not to make it a better Iraq, it was to kill the bad guys. President Bush says he wants democracy to spread throughout the Middle East. Was that the real reason behind the war in Iraq? Why do you think we went to Iraq? The real reason, not the sales pitch. Their reason for this war, which they don't regret, was never the reasons they used to sell us on the war. And he emphasized everywhere he said the reason or whatever. We added the emphasis in each statement to show how it presupposes the war must have had a single motive, reason, or cause. In the mind of a decision maker, or perhaps a decider in this case, there might seem to be just one reason for a decision, but of course nearly every complex decision has multiple complex causes. In this case, even as he searched for the one true reason, Matthews identified a wide variety of possibilities: weapons of mass destruction, Iraq's support of the terrorists, Saddam Hussein's deposition, and the strategic goal of establishing democracy in Arab countries, to name only the most prominent. And they all arose against the backdrop of a new post-9/11 sensitivity to the possibility of enemies launching attacks on the U.S. homeland. Had one or some of those preconditions not been in place, the war may not have been launched, but it is not possible to isolate one of them after the fact and say it was the reason for the invasion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not what they're saying is things are way more complicated.
Yeah. We reduce things to like, the one thing that we latch onto, but there's always a multitude of things that brought things to that point even, and it's not to say that one thing wasn't part of the decision, whatever it is, but yeah, there's all kinds of reasons things happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of intersectionality, which I know is like a buzzword that people associate with, other things, but it's, there's very much going to always be this like, it's causal, but it's almost, it's a good way to think about it. It's like rhizomic maybe, or there's, something that where you have to have everything set. It's like a game of mousetrap, everything has to kind of align in order to make, and it's not one single thing.
Yeah. And we want everything to be very simple.
Right.
That's the other thing. So, and again, looking at the paranormal, people want that one explanation that explains it all, which is why people keep looking for that theory of everything.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're ever going to find that, because I think there's a lot of different stuff going on.
Yeah.
So they talk about like, how no one person like causes a business to fail. Generally, it's a combination of things. Sometimes things that aren't even in that person's control. They talk about a movie producer. What was her name here? Nope. I went too many pages forward. So this kind of faulty reasoning about cause and effect is just as common in business as it is in politics. Sherry Lansing, long described as the most powerful woman in Hollywood as CEO of Paramount Pictures from 92 to 2004, she oversaw mega hits like Forrest Gump and Titanic, and films from her studio received 3 Academy Awards for Best Picture. According to an article in the Los Angeles Times, after a series of failed projects and declines in Paramount's share of box office revenues, Lansing's contract was not renewed. She resigned a year early, and it was widely believed she had effectively been fired for poor performance. But just as the hits weren't due solely to her genius, the duds couldn't have been due solely to her screw-ups. Hundreds of other people have creative influence on a movie, and hundreds of factors determine whether a movie captures the imagination and cash of audiences. Lansing's successor, Brad Gray, was lauded for turning the studio around. 2 of the first films released under his leadership, War of the Worlds and The Longest Yard, were top grossers in 2005. However, both movies were conceived and produced during Lansing's tenure. If she had just hung on for a few more months, she would have received the credit and might have remained in charge. There's no doubt that a CEO is officially responsible for the performance of her company, but attributing all of the company's successes or failures to the one person at the top is a classic illustration of the illusion of cause.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Quick mid-show break. Contact info and a recommendation. Everything Where Did the Road Go related can be found at wheredidtheroadgo.com. And if you want to become a patron, it's only $3 a month. You get the shows weeks early sometimes, at least a week early. You get them commercial free, and you get a bonus Patreon segment with almost every show. In addition to that, there's more extra stuff I give patrons. And again, it's only $3 a month. It's only ever been $3 a month, and it helps out the show greatly, as does giving us good reviews, sharing us, whatever. I mean, spread the word. There's also a link tree at wheredidtheroadgo.com that will take you to all the other stuff I do, from photography to my music show, The Last Exit for the Lost. So you can find all that, as well as all the social media for Where Did the Road Go, and shows all the way back to the very first one. I've fallen behind posting shows publicly a little bit. I'm catching up right now with that, and when I get caught up, what I'm going to start doing is you're going to get a new show, hopefully on Mondays, and on Thursdays I plan on putting up a show from 2014, because they're not all available on the feed anymore. And if I do that, it will eventually, I will get all those old shows on the feed, and if you haven't been listening all this time, you'll get 2 shows a week. Or if you just want to go back and re-listen to a show from 2014, because I know I don't remember all of those by any means. Sure, some of them were great, and a few of them probably were not. All right. Well, as for a recommendation, I am going to go with this movie Weapons. My friend Lance recommended this to me, and I posted about it, and everyone was like, yeah, this movie's amazing. So the description from IMDb is just: when all but one child from the same class mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. This movie was fantastic. It was really original. It was really creepy. It was fantastic. The same guy who directed and I think wrote Barbarian, which was also a great movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. So yeah, this is my favorite thing I've seen in a while. So yeah, Weapons. Simple title, awesome movie. All right, back to the show. So we are talking The Invisible Gorilla here. This is part 2 of our Invisible Gorilla show. And they're now dealing with, the illusion of, what did I just say it was? The illusion of cause.
There we
go. The chapter's entitled Jumping to Conclusions, which is definitely something that people do. So I'm trying to find the next thing. Illusions of cause include overzealous pattern detection mechanisms, the unjustified leap from correlation to causation, and the inherent appeal of chronological narratives, which we very much like. We like to be able to put something into a story.
Right. Yeah. It's the something that, I think it is part of us putting things into patterns, but because the story is such an important thing for humans in terms of, how we structure our lives, the idea of the narrative we kind of force ourselves into doing that.
So the next thing is they have the illusion of potential. And I've talked about this on the show, but now we'll get to the actual meat of this. And this one really stuck with me. The magic genius of Mozart is the section. And it says, the Mozart effect burst into public consciousness in October 1993 when Nature, one of the top 2 scientific journals, the other being Science, published a one-page article by Francis Roscher, Gordon Shaw, and Catherine Kai under the innocuous title Music and Spatial Task Performance. I guess that was it. Okay. And Shaw, a physics professor who had shifted his interest to neuroscience, together with his student Xiaoden Lang, I probably said that wrong, had developed a mathematical theory of how neurons in the brain work together. As a classical music enthusiast, Shaw noticed some similarities between the mathematical structure of classical pieces and the patterns in theory predicted to be found in the electrical activity of neurons. From this perceived similarity, he made the prediction that merely listening to music could enhance the function of one's brain, but only the right kind of music. Shaw believed that Mozart had composed music that would optimally resonate with the inherent internal neural language, and that it would have the greatest enhancing effect. As he later wrote, the magic genius of Mozart perhaps displayed a supplement use of the inherent cortical language in his music. To help test his theory, Shaw hired Francis Roscher, a former concert cellist who had switched her profession to psychology, and together they conducted a simple experiment. Each of 36 college students performed 3 tests taken from a standard IQ test battery: pattern analysis, matrix reasoning, and paper folding and cutting. In the pattern analysis tests, subjects constructed objects out of blocks according to the patterns they were given. The matrix reasoning task, subjects selected which of several shapes would complete a pattern composed of other abstract shapes. In the paper folding and cutting task, subjects viewed a picture of an origami-like design with dashed and solid lines showing where one would fold and cut the pattern. Then subjects would choose which of several pictures accurately showed what the paper would look like after being unfolded. Before taking these tests, the subject listened to one of the following recordings: 10 minutes of Mozart's Sonata for 2 pianos in D major, 10 minutes of relaxation instructions designed to lower blood pressure, or 10 minutes of silence. The sonata is described as gallant from the beginning to end, one of the most profound and mature of all Mozart's compositions. According to the article, the subjects who did well on one of the tests did well on the others. There were significant correlations among the tests, just as would be expected for the subparts of an IQ test or of any test of general cognitive ability like an SAT. So Shaw and colleagues combined the 3 tests into a single measure of what they call the abstract reasoning ability and transformed it into a scale of IQ scores, which have an average of 100 points for the general population. They then compared the 3 listening conditions and found that the scores after sitting in silence were 110, after listening to a relaxation instructions they were 111, and after listening to Mozart's sonata they were 119. Thus, listening to Mozart appeared to be make the students smarter by 8 to 9 IQ points. Although 9 points might seem small, it's not. An average person who is by definition more intelligent than 50% of other people should or would be more intelligent than 70% of other people after listening to the Mozart sonata. The simple tonic of 10 minutes of classical music, if its effects could be harnessed, would propel a typical student past 20% of his or her relaxing or silence-enjoying peers, potentially turning B's into A's as failing grades and failing grades into passing ones.
Yeah.
So there's obviously an issue with this.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
And the issue is it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Right.
Basically what they so the media reported the scientific finding with enthusiasm. Mozart made you smarter, read the headline in the Boston Globe.
Yeah.
And I remember this. And they even
I do too.
They even did Mozart for babies where you're supposed to play it for the baby in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as somebody, that was listening to, heavy music this whole idea that like classical music was somehow superior.
Yeah.
It was definitely something that was, I remember this completely.
I mean, to me, I think, like, if you like complexity, you're going to like things like classical music. You know, you're going to appreciate that complexity.
Oh, it's fine, but it's not like there's this, I could talk about the many things I disagree with Joseph Farrell on, but, this idea that somehow classical music, and I think it's a racist idea, it's a Eurocentric idea, is like intellectually and somehow like, superior aesthetically or creatively than all other music that at least I remember still being pretty prevalent in like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still kind of a thing now, even. And
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I come across it some, but
insulated myself.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It seems like if you listen to 80 music you like, you can have this kind of effect too.
Yeah.
So that is what they discovered.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Turns out if you like something, it gets your brain moving a little bit more, maybe. Mm-hmm. That would make more sense to me.
So they actually dubbed it the blur effect because there was I think they played Blur for some students, and those students liked Blur, and then they did better on the test. And so the end conclusion after numerous people repeated this test was that listening to music you like makes you do better on tests. Because it puts you in a better mood, it gives you some energy, And so, by and large, those people will it doesn't matter what kind of music it is, though. It just has to be something you like.
Yeah.
Something that moves you.
Song number 2 actually may have that power, but that's a different
Sure. No, I like that song.
Song number 2?
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Woohoo.
I don't know that one.
It's okay. No worries, man. You know enough music already.
That is true. My brain is full of music.
Yeah, it's full.
And yet it will still get stuck on a song. I did the Lovecraft show for Last Exit a couple of weeks ago around his birthday, and one of the songs I played was from Darkness of the Hillside Thickets. And man, that song was in my head for a week. And I'm like, come on, find another song to get earwormed on,
I hate that.
And then I tried listening to it going, well, maybe if I listen to it, nope, that didn't clear it either. But anyway, so yeah, they did this whole study, and it says, and all these studies basically disproved the Mozart effect, but proved that music in general could have you do better on tests. And it says the studies by Stow, Steele, and others received little notice, but the publications of the original discoverers continued to influence public perceptions and even public policy. Roscher even testified about her findings before a committee of the U.S. Congress. The media gives tremendous weight and coverage to the first study published on a research question and essentially ignores all that come after. This bias is unsurprising. Fame goes on to the discoverer, not to the person that got there a few months later or who just happened to follow up on the original work. But even in science, the judgment of greatness is retrospective, one that only history can render. And journalism is well known to be only the first draft of history. When a new finding is announced, the journalists and other observers might be hard-pressed to say, I won't report this story until I see it replicated by at least 2 other laboratories. And restraint is all the less likely when the impact might be as great as 9 IQ points in 10 minutes. Then it says, is this the same thing here? A second study by Kristen Nantius and Glenn Schellberg of the University of Toronto found no overall difference in cognitive task performance after listening to the Mozart or the short story. They also put a story in there at one point. The Last Rung of the Ladder by Stephen King. The subjects did do better after listening to what they liked best. The most sensible explanation for this finding, as well as the blur effect, is that your mood is improved when you hear what you like, and you do modestly better on IQ tests when you're in a better mood. The effect has nothing to do with increasing your intelligence per se. The problem here, though, is that, you had, like I said, that Mozart for Babies thing that I think was HP put it out, is still sold today. Play Mozart for your baby, it'll make it smarter.
Oh, for sure.
And even though there's no evidence, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's hard to get something away. I mean, there's been all these instances of these, and we've mentioned probably several of them, but these papers that get published and they cause a sensation. And even though they get retracted or whatever, peer reviewed and totally taken down afterwards, they've made enough of a sensation to cause, people to think that it's true. I mean, it's been happening, for a lot since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite examples of that is the bro culture and the alpha male concept. Was, the guys that wrote that paper rescinded that forever ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're like, no, that's not what we were wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, Mozart for Babies is on iTunes.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Nice.
So 20 years after it's been disproved, it's still out there.
Yeah.
They do make one comment on hypnosis. They don't deal with it a whole lot in this book, but I mean, they're dealing with obviously how we perceive and remember things. And it says 61% of our respondents agreed that hypnosis is useful when helping witnesses accurately recall details of crimes. I mean, you could, throw UFO encounters in there if you want. The idea that hypnosis can put the brain in a special state in which the powers of memory are dramatically greater than normal reflects a belief in a form of easily unlocked potential. But it is false. People under hypnosis do generate more memories than they do in a normal state, but these recollections are as likely to be false as true. Hypnosis leads them to come up with more information, but not necessarily more accurate information. In fact, it might actually be people's beliefs in the power of hypnosis that lead them to recall more things. If people believe they should have better memory under hypnosis, they will try harder to retrieve more memories when hypnotized. Unfortunately, there's no way to know whether the memories hypnotized people retrieve are true or not, unless, of course, we know exactly what the person should be able to remember. But if we knew that, then we'd have no need to use hypnosis in the first place.
Right.
And this goes back to Jenny Randles. So Jenny Randles has basically tried to kick hypnosis out of the UFO culture in the UK. And what she had was an experience earlier in her life that she did not remember all of. But there were records or whatever, data could be checked. She didn't know it, but she experienced it and forgot it. So she was hypnotized, and they hypnotized her to remember what happened that day. The stuff she remembered consciously came out under hypnosis accurately. The stuff she did not remember did not come out. Other stuff was created instead that did not match up to what happened that day. And this was one of the things where they could go and check. And she was like, yeah, this is not a memory recovery tool. It did not recover any memories. So this is why I am so adamant that people not use this to recover lost memories, because it does not do that. There's no evidence for it. I mean, there are occasional times where someone will recover something important that we can double check. There was a case of someone trying to remember a license plate number. But that's a lot different than, I think I have missing time, and then coming up with an alien abduction scenario.
What do you think it is that's happening most of the time with hypnosis? Is it? I know you probably talked about it before, but I'm just curious. Remind me. It's
a suggestive state.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's a suggestive state. I mean, that's what it's an altered state of consciousness. It's very suggestive, very open to suggestion. What were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, I was going to say, because I think that it's, there's something there about, the idea of mind over matter and, thought being a creative process, that sometimes thoughts can become reality, or at least closer, at the closest thing it can be without maybe, taking on mass, which is a memory or an imagination,
Yeah.
Well, and, some of the, I guess some of the guys around Benowitz, right, where they were leading people quite a bit in the hypnosis sessions.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody would be interesting to talk to about that too would be Ren, because he got his mother, I think, to try and create an experience for him through hypnosis, if I remember correctly. And I think he had varying, degree of result, but I appreciated that he just decided to I'll just get my mom to try this on me and we'll see what happens.
Right.
Well, the Newkirks did it, and then they put that stuff in the second season of what was it called?
Yeah.
Hellier.
Thank you. Yeah.
Where they hypnotized someone into experiencing a UFO abduction, and it really messed the guy up.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, the guy didn't have a UFO abduction, but he had all the, the memory and the trauma from it after the hypnosis session. Hypnosis is a behavior modifier. It is very helpful to get people to do things like stop smoking. Obviously, people can use it. When I snap my fingers, you'll squawk like a chicken type of thing. For some reason, it's able to manipulate behavior like that. But when you look at the stuff that we have about extraterrestrials, 90% of it comes from hypnosis. And when you realize that's not reliable information, we're left with mostly lights in the sky, some weird encounters when people that they do remember, but very little that ties it to extraterrestrial.
Yeah. So a lot of Betty Hill's memories were recovered through hypnosis, right?
Right, yes.
Supposedly. Yeah. And, I'm going to throw Ren back out here again. He was the first person that got me to question if that was not some kind of MK Ultra experiment or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, he's really into Martin Cannon's, or at least last time I remember hearing from him. He was, he was all Martin Cannon. Yeah,
Martin Cannon's the controller. There is some of that still kind of resonates for me too. Once he said that, I was like, and you pick a mixed race couple to target, which is, pretty nefarious. There's a lot of things that just.
I totally think it's possible, especially with the Betty and Barney Hill case. Yeah.
Mixed race couple who are also marginal, so they're not going to be taken too seriously.
Who were very much involved in the I think that chapter of the NAACP there.
Yeah.
So I mean, it when you start looking at it, it's like, oh man, this seems like almost you could see how they could be targeted maliciously. In a way, we'll use them,
Operation
that kind of thing.
Midnight Climax.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's man, and you listen to what's his name? The guy who did the hypnosis stuff on Emma Woods.
Guy from Temple. Or something, right?
Man, why do I always blank on his name?
Well, yeah, I'm blanking on it too now.
Because I always want to say John Mack. It's not John Mack.
No, not John Mack.
Of the people,
John Mack just had lots of affairs.
John Mack of the people who did that stuff was the better.
David Jacobs.
David, thank you.
Not
David
no
Jacobs.
R at all.
But it helped. The R helped. Jacobs. If you hear some of those tapes of Emma Woods, he's just flat out disgustingly leading her into these encounters. Even when she's saying, no, that's not what happened. He's like, that's fine. Yeah. He literally says, I'm leading you here. Just, follow along. What if this happened? And so he's putting that trauma in her brain.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And I don't know. Yeah. Again, no one thinks they're the bad guy. I don't know that he was doing it to harm her. I think he was just so stuck in his belief of what was going on that he wanted to generate more content, to validate it,
Right. And I think that's the, again, we're talking about an expert here. So I guess this disproves, I was going to say, maybe there's something there about, not being an expert, making you more confident. And I'd say maybe that's more of a Bud Hopkins thing. He became so confident. But, David got kind of pervy. I mean, not kind of. He got pervy, which is a whole other thing.
But he's not a psychologist. The only one of those three that was a psychologist was John Mack.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I believe John Mack was a psychologist, right?
Oh yeah, no. He was a well-known psychologist at a at Harvard.
Psychiatrist. I'm sorry, psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Yeah.
Because I think
he had his doctorate.
Man, what's his name again?
Who?
The one
Jacobs.
Jacobs. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think he's a historian.
He might be. I don't remember.
Let's see. American historian, yeah. And,
okay.
Bud Hopkins was an artist.
Yeah.
So these
sorry, to reinforce John Mack, he's a psychiatrist, but he was a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. He was and he was a great guy and, really already very well established in his, practice, and especially with kids, which is what made him so effective with the Rua. Is it Rua or the aerial school? Phenomena thing. So he was. And if anybody hasn't read his book, I think it's very much worth it.
Well, it's interesting because his stuff doesn't look as extraterrestrial. Like he's hypnotizing these people. He's not leading them. Red Pill once made the comment that maybe when people are creating these events, that they're having the experience as they're creating them.
Yes, which I always thought was a really interesting take.
And there was, what was his name? Brent Rains, when he was on, was talking about, I think St. Keel wrote, that while under hypnosis, someone said there's a UFO over the building, and he and the psychiatrist went outside, and sure enough, there was a UFO over the building, and he was saying this while he was under hypnosis.
Wow. Yeah.
Which, if that's true, is very interesting because, again, it leaves open that question, what really is hypnosis? I mean, it's an altered state. We know that, but we don't understand how it works.
Right. I mean, I wonder if it could take you into a meditative yogic state too, which certainly can allow you to do things like, pick up psychically or, astrally project.
Right. Right.
And
or even be a receiver for something else or an output for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
sure.
When you're talking about that, just made me think of how many times, Seth to a certain degree, but, some of the early contactees that would, get taken over by whatever entity they were, visiting with and get messages about we've got to disarm nuclear weapons and things like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, these were all, and that's the thing, these were also concerns of people, I mean,
right.
We're getting the disarmed nuclear weapons at the same point that we're all thinking, God, we need to disarm these nuclear weapons.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
And then
that's a big thing that, I don't think people talk about enough. Speaking of the Ariel case, which is,
a fascinating case.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a whole show on that with, I don't remember who was, I know Jeff Ritzman was the one who suggested it. So it was him, but I don't remember who else I had on. Maybe Joshua Cutchin, quite a few years ago.
It was either Joshua or Red Pill, maybe. That seems like one he would have had.
Yeah, he might have been on there. I think there were 3 other people on it. So
okay,
it might have been Josh and Red Pill. It's in the archive. You can find it at wheretheroadgo.com, which is searchable. I mean, you can put in Jeff Ritzman, and it'll pull up every mention of Jeff Ritzman in the whole archive. Oh, the whole website, or just put in Ariel, and you'll probably find that show. All right, we're almost out of time, so I think the only thing I had left tapped on here was the subliminal messages. So we will deal with that in the Patreon because that's very interesting as well.
Mm.
The whole book is interesting. I cannot recommend enough that people go buy this. Get it from your library, whatever. Read the book, The Invisible Gorilla: How Our Intuitions Deceive Us. Because not only does it play into how we perceive paranormal stuff, but paranormal stuff is just a facet of how we perceive everything. Mm-hmm. And if we don't understand how we perceive everything and how our intuitions deceive us, as they say, we jump to conclusions we shouldn't jump to, and that limits us understanding what we're really experiencing. So again, if you think, something weird happened in my house, it must be haunted. Well, it must be a ghost. Let's look through the historical records. Oh, so-and-so died here 50 years ago. That's who it is. And then you start talking to it as if it's that person. And for whatever this stuff is, tends to co-create with us. So it's going to start behaving like that.
Right.
And now you're even more sure. It's responding to me. It's telling me stuff I looked up,
Right.
Yep.
Ah, boy, it's so complicated.
I blame The Conjuring for that. Recently.
Yes.
But it didn't start with The Conjuring.
No, it didn't. Not at all.
I mean, again, I go back to that one episode of Ghost Hunters that they were in the baby furniture store in the first or second season. And they looked through the history and they're like, there's no one died here. And I'm thinking, first of all, people have died on every inch of this planet.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, there's
Exactly.
Why are there not dinosaur ghosts in the house?
Yeah. So, and maybe we do, and then we just misinterpret them. But they're like, there was no tragic deaths here. This building was built in 1950. And so they tagged it on to somebody who worked there who died, but not in the building because they had to have a source, like
Yep.
if it's haunted, there must be a ghost. Who's the ghost?
Yeah.
And that's where they got that really interesting EVP that's, they were like, oh, Julia, are you here? And you get sort of it wasn't a great EVP, but it was enough where you hear them say, there's no Julia here. Leave us alone.
Yeah.
And it's like, they wouldn't have faked that because they would have made it fit their beliefs if they faked it. So that was interesting.
Right.
All right. So as I said, we will continue this on a Patreon and we'll talk about subliminal messages and whether or not they work.
All right.
Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you, Strahd.
Absolutely.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Because of you, this show still survives. And it is because of you that I intend to keep going with it. So I want to give a special shout out to those of you who are pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Trin, Sean Cosgrove, Tim, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K., Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L., Automaton, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Tyler Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Diane B., Beverly Williamson, Jim and Sophie, Andrew Maines, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varosh K., MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Laura McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Linda from Michigan, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddock, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, and Matthew Brown. Thank you all so very, very much for the support. All right, we finish off this conversation about the Invisible Gorilla in a Patreon segment, and you can become a Patreon for just $3. Just go to the website, wheredidtheroadgo.com, and click on the big Patreon link. And commercial-free episodes, you get them early. You get extra content with almost every one, plus extra stuff on top of that. Well worth the $3, and it helps out the show immensely. And I want to welcome a few new patrons. Matthew Bolton, 123456, and Ralph Ratcliffe. I hope you guys enjoy the new material, or the content. New content, the old content, yeah, all of that. Hope you enjoy being a patron and get what you're looking for out of it. I try to do a lot for patrons and keep the price nice and affordable. In book news, which I'll probably do a video about this soon, the book is pretty much done. The first part of my autobiography, that only goes up to 1996, and it's over 100,000 words. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's my life, really. I did quite a bit of research on my early life, which I don't remember much of, and was able to fill a lot of that stuff in. And then I have notes from 1990. To 1996 in this case, and it's all the weird experiences I had, the patterns that get laid out with them, weird dreams, and also just my life in general, the stuff I went through, how I got to where I am, the stuff that influenced me, and the people who I wouldn't be here without. So it's all kind of a big interconnected mess, which I guess I didn't really realize until I started putting this together, how many things needed to be just in the right place for me to be here with you today. So, I'm hoping to have that done before the end of the year. Like I said, it's pretty much written. I'm just finishing, as of my recording this segment right now, and it's September 19th. I have one chapter left to proofread, then I'm sending it off to a couple of people to proofread, because as much as I've read through it 2 or 3 times now, still catching little errors and occasionally realizing I didn't give exposition where maybe I should have, to make something more understandable, because in my head, I know what I'm talking about. So getting a couple of different people to proofread it will help me make sure that it all makes sense to someone who is not me. I think that makes sense, right? So yeah, Matt Festa did the artwork. It's beautiful. And if people care about this and if people like it, I will get to work on the second part, which hopefully I can get all the way up to like 2018 with. This one was originally going to go to 2001, but I realized how much more stuff this thing would be the size of a Joshua Cutchin book if I kept going. So I figured stop, get it out, and then if people like it, if you out there like it and want the second part, I'll write the second part, and I'll start right away writing the second part. I will also do an audiobook for it, and I may do a video thing as well, because I have a lot of stuff that I'm talking about either on video or in pictures and stuff like that, so there may be sort of a video supplement to all of this as well. And with that, I will see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. And thank you so much for your support.